Hi, everyone. Welcome to Joseph's latest fireside chat. Today's a really special one because I am joined by two people who we've just run a project with that I've described as my favorite project ever. Diana Didia, who is our Chief Information and Innovation Officer at the American Arbitration Association, and Bridget McCormack, who is CEO and President of the American Arbitration Association. Diana and Bridget, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Cool. So first up, for those who don't know the American Arbitration Association, and also the two of you both have fascinating backgrounds. Could you tell us a little bit about the organization and about how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Thanks again for having us. We're excited to be here and talk about the work we've done together and what we're doing at the AAA. The American Arbitration Association was founded almost 100 years ago in 1926, originally to provide arbitration services, which is still a lot of what we do today, to the growing number of businesses at that time that for which litigation was becoming costly and time-consuming. And since then, we have built out and up our alternative dispute resolution services. In addition to arbitration, we do mediation and all kinds of other upstream services to help people, individuals, businesses, governments, organizations, anybody who needs different and better ways to resolve disputes. We deliver products and services to those folks. And frankly, in my view, grow access to justice by what we do. So I have only been here for about 15 months. I was most recently the Chief Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court and joined as the new CEO and President in February of 2023, and was delighted to find that I have a tremendous team, including especially Diana Didia, who can tell you a little bit about herself and her background.
Hey, yes, thank you. Thank you, Bridget. I've been actually with the AAA for almost 12 years now. And prior to coming to the AAA, I really was engaged with helping a lot of different companies in different industries with their digital transformation. And I was actually hired by the AAA to sort of build a more formal software development practice and to sort of remediate infrastructure concerns at that time. And that took up a lot of my time in the beginning. But more recently, certainly I think through my whole journey at the AAA, technology has really been part of the core mission in the way that we provide services and products to our customers. And so that's been really exciting for me because I play a big role. I'm at the table. I work in collaboration with the heads of our actual case divisions. And more recently, we built out a really strong innovation practice, which I also lead. And that, the technology and innovation is really having a moment with generative AI and some of the things we're going to talk about today. And it's really exciting that we have a lot of support from Bridget and from our board and from our customers and so forth to really do some interesting work related to generative AI and bringing advanced technologies to bear to solve really interesting alternative dispute challenges.
Amazing. AAA really is one of the most innovative organizations we have worked with on GenAI. I think the two of you and the organization as a whole is really ahead of the game on this technology, and it's incredibly exciting to be a part of. How are you both thinking about generative AI at the American Arbitration Association?
Well, first of all, we're thinking about it all the time. And we've been thinking about it all the time for over a year now. We decided that even though nobody understood in February of 2023 where it was all headed, we knew it was headed in a disruptive direction for the business of law, the practice of law, I think lawyer formation, and access to justice. And so we wanted to learn everything we could, experiment in every way we could. And luckily we had this excellent structured innovation practice and team that was able to lead us through our learning, experimentation, and then eventually building products and services with GenAI built into them. I can pause and let Diana say a little bit more about that because she's the Chief Innovation Officer. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think early on we really got permission, if you will. We were encouraged to experiment with generative AI, and I, to do that in a way that we put guardrails around it. We gave guidance to our employees about not putting sensitive information into the models, but under Bridget's leadership, we were really encouraging folks to. We thought these tools were going to be transformational, so we really wanted all of our employees experimenting with them so that we could bubble up ideas for actual products or productivity improvements or what have you. And so that was a core part of, and that continues to be encouraged. And I, that was sort of stage one. And then we really did start thinking about, well, how can we be, what opportunities do we have to improve either products or new products or services? And then also internally, where can we be adding efficiencies or speeding up processes or what have you? And in that we picked a few good ideas out of the bucket, if you will, and we used those to drive further experimentation and really starting to develop the skills, just like your company's doing, like learning how to really put these models in service we're all at the beginning of that journey. And so, trying to start small and just creating a competency, if you will, is kind of where we were just a few months ago. Now we're kind of pivoting a bit to, we've learned a lot. So, how do we now scale that knowledge and really, take some bigger bets and start putting it while the models themselves are still going through a lot of change and maturation, but, we want to be lockstep with that. And, I think everybody's anticipating that there's going to be some big enterprise solutions that can be brought to bear sooner than later. And we want to be right there at that moment, ready to launch things when the models are really ready to support them.
Amazing. I love that movement, Diana, of build the competency first and then figure out how we can put the models to work for us.
Yeah.
I think the sort of traditional design process, right, where you start with the problem or the opportunity, yes, it still persists here, but when you've got a new piece of technology,
Yes.
there's an additional little step, right?
That's right. That's totally right. Yeah. And that is, we were saying early days, it's like months ago now, but we were talking about how a lot of conversations around generative AI, if you listen to podcasts or panel discussions, attend conferences, so much of it was about the really big concerns, which are important. Like it hallucinates, there's bias built into the models. And, you can spend hours and hours and hours talking about that. And I think as an engineer and then the head of our innovation practice, we sort of pivoted to, okay, those conversations need to be happening, but there's a lot of work we can be doing that is independent of that, of just learning the technical ways to put these models in service. And, and we have others, I know Bridget's on a lot of those discussions, as she should be, but, I think organizations were almost choosing which bucket to be in. I think we really chose to be running in parallel, which again, is important for creating that competency and being ready when those big problems get solved, and but I do think it all starts with being optimistic that they're going to get solved. And I know, Bridget, you talk a lot about that, of being very AI optimist.
Yeah.
Well, Bridget.
Sorry, Sam. I was going to say I'm definitely an optimist. And as you know well, this technology didn't come with any manual, right? There's no handbook for how to use it. So, we both felt like we had to empower our own teams, our staff, to figure out how they could help us discover, ways in which to improve ops. Like internal ops is one, bucket of things we definitely know we can improve. And then we empowered a group of our panelists as well to figure out, how can we improve products and services. And then Diana's engineers had to do their own, sort of learning competency building practice. So we had all of these groups kind of working in parallel to learn along the way. There are lots of discussions out there in the legal profession about the bigger, the ethics issues and the, bias issues. And I definitely am part of most of those conversations. And I do think that those are important, but we're not going to waste time between now and when the lawyers figure it out, because then it's going to be too late.
Very good. I love it. As an optimist, Bridget, we've talked about the role that GenAI is playing at the American Arbitration Association, but you've got a unique view, right? You were the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Michigan. Like, why should the legal profession as a whole care about this? Where do you think it's all going?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is one of the things that makes me most excited about this technology because, despite many excellent intentions and hard work on behalf of lawyers and judges and others, who work in the legal industry to address what is a massive market failure, the civil justice system. 92% of Americans can't get help with their civil legal problems. All of a sudden, we have a breakthrough technology that might well be the kind of solution that our one-to-one service delivery model was never ever going to come up with. It's just not possible. So the possibility of building plain language support for it's not only individuals, as you all well know, it's also small and medium businesses for the most part can't afford help with their civil legal problems. And yet those problems are adjudicated in courts where, people speak a weird language that you have to pay, hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn. And frankly, it's kind of un-American. And so I view this technology as providing a breakthrough for delivering on equal access to justice. And, I'm excited about some of the tools you're building at Josef and in that space. And I think they have the potential to change the world. And I don't want to get to, I have to stop talking, but I happen to think that this massive market failure is really undermining the rule of law. And I can go on and on about that, but that's not what this podcast is for. So.
Yeah, I mean, no, I could listen to you talk about that for hours, and that I'm in vehement agreement with you. Let's zoom in for a moment on this project, my favorite project of recent times with your organization and with the two of you. We ran a really exciting pilot, for want of a better word, where we took a tool that your wonderful team had built internally, and we ran it against a tool built on Josef Q, and we learned an awful lot. What were your learnings? What were your takeaways from that process?
Yeah, it's first of all, fundamentally, as a CIO, you have only so much development bandwidth, and you want to use that bandwidth in the most strategic ways. So typically, you'd really want to be putting our programmers in service of building things that are very bespoke to our strategy or processes or what have you. I think with a lot of the generative AI, some of the early use cases, there was a question of, should we be building this ourselves, or are there vendors that provide it? And certainly, again, we were really just trying to learn. So I think we cherry picked stuff, and we weren't as worried about that, at minute one, because when we're going to get to talking about this chatbot, but we wanted to understand how chatbots work in general, and how if we did point an LLM at a small data set, we ended up doing our rules and some FAQs related to filing. What would it take to really tune it? And just that exercise, I think, for us was really informative in the way that we collaborate with business users and with lawyers in our organization. And I was calling that, it sort of feels like co-programming. We get it so far, and then it's more than just testing software. It's their prompting, and then their expected responses, and giving that feedback back to our engineers. Then we make the product better. It's like it's required to even get the product to have correct outcomes, right? And so I think we learned a lot in that. But then we were curious. We sort of stopped short of, when we would look at things like starting to learn about the expense of running it, and, how the tokens work, and, prompt compression and all these different things. We at some point bumped into Josef, or we're introduced to Josef. And, your Josef Q product is already, it is, you're putting it in service of a lot of different legal chatbot use cases, and so it's very tuned towards those particular use cases. And so we were curious. We were curious initially just how accurate our results were against your results. You're a dedicated team doing this, and for us it was a little, one of our first projects. And then we just wanted to learn more about how, trying to answer that question, that buy versus build question. How much what does the buy offer in terms of governance, in terms of maintenance, in terms of support. And yeah, I think we were very pleased to see that I think our tuning got pretty close, like accuracy of the results were pretty good, on point. But I think as we went along, it did feel like we've made a decision, to use to buy, so that's an important outcome of this bake-off. And I think where we felt where that made sense for us had a lot to do with governance and you're repeatedly testing the models that are utilized in your chatbots for, OpenAI is out there dropping releases all the time, and what that might mean to results for our customers. And we're not quite far enough along on our journey here to have built up that kind of extra governance competency. And then I think also just, we've built one chatbot, and the Josef Q has this nice layer where, end users can actually go in and start to deploy multiple chatbots. And that's extra coding. We could build that. Frankly, I think we if we built it ourselves, it would work pretty nicely. But I'm not sure, again, if that's where I want to put my strategic dev hours. That's what it comes down to is, and that middleware sort of, if you will, almost that middle console where end users can kind of make multiple chatbots, I think has a lot of value that we want to take advantage of. That's kind of what it comes down to without having to build it. So
that's great. Yeah, I guess the two themes I'm picking up, Diana, are like sustainability and scalability.
Yes.
But I think you make a really good point as well. Like your tech team has built some extraordinary stuff. Like, yes, the chatbot, but also like so many other solutions that I remember both of you presenting on a Legal Week. It's like, this is like cutting edge stuff. So the idea that you can take that talented team and turn their attention to, the stuff up here, and then we'll help you capture the low hanging fruit. I think that's a beautiful outcome of the
I think that's a really good way to put it. And I think we're also going to learn watching when we get through Josef Q operational here. I think we talked about being able to report out of it, like certainly usage. Like I'm really curious, like once we put chatbots out there for customer use, what engagement do we get from the customers coming to our website? And then just also the history of the prompts and responses. Like, so that in and of itself has a lot of value for us. It's like another training set. What are customers asking about our rules, and what do these models tee up as the answers for those questions? I think, I think just it's going to be, it's like you said, it's maybe low hanging fruit, but I think there's a lot of really interesting value we're going to mine out of having stood up some chatbots, both for our employees and for our customers, that will inform other efforts that we have underway.
Great. I love that insight. Bridget, I'm conscious of the time. I'm going to throw to you for the last question. You have been at the American Arbitration Association for just over a year. And I think, the two of you teaming up and the rest of the AAA team really demonstrate the power of leadership when it comes to this new technology. What advice would you give to other leaders who are considering looking at this technology? What are some common pitfalls? What are some opportunities?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I honestly, I think that, so Diana and I have done a presentation about this together with Linda, our VP of Innovation, a few times. And it's unbelievable to me the response we get, and then I've done it a number of other times, from legal organizations in particular who feel paralyzed right now because they feel like it's just an overwhelming moment of disruption because the technology is changing so quickly that human brains can't really follow it, that most people are stuck and afraid to move forward. And the advice I give everyone is, first of all, it has to come from the top. Your C-suite has to be invested in what this particular transformation looks like, or it's never going to happen. If you house it in your marketing department, it's not going to happen. It has to happen from the top. And everybody has to be using it. I use the tools every day, and that has to be common. And you have to you have to start doing it to be able to figure out what comes next. The conversation you and Diana just had about figuring out how to strategically deploy your in-house dev teams versus like where you partner with a Josef Q on covering some of the other bases is, you know, kind of like 5 levels up, right? Like you can't get to that set of questions until you at least understand what the possibilities are for your internal ops and your core products and services. I always say, like, think of those 2 buckets. As a leader, think of those 2 buckets and figure out where this technology is going to have a tremendous impact. It's going to have an impact in both. It's probably a threat and an opportunity in both. But until you get your arms around those things, which you're not going to do until you start using the technology, it's going to be hard to get to the more strategic questions. But we've actually we've put together a pretty good presentation on this, on how legacy organizations can embrace this particular moment of disruption. And I'm shocked by how many people are interested in hearing it. People are eager for this, some of this advice.
Well, when we post this, we'll have to link it. If you're happy for us to do that, we'll link it in the comments below so people can learn more. I've taken up too much of your time already, both of you. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and for sharing these insights, and for all the work you're doing in leading the profession on this technology. I think it's groundbreaking stuff, and the 2 of you are really leading the charge. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.